I don't know. Let's just get started, huh?
Yeah, I'm ready when you are. I'm already ready. I'm already done.
Let's just be a little bit more patient, okay?
Oh, right.
This is exactly how it was in our office. Oh my
Pretty
God.
much. I walk in and I'm like, did we finish yet? And you're like, what are we talking about? Right?
Much.
Pretty
Oh
much.
my gosh. How much time do I have you for?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's a detail I didn't pay attention to.
That is a deal that you'd normally pay attention to. So I'm going to be looking off here occasionally because I've got both of our discs up and I'll be bringing up stuff. So I think the first one we'll talk about is, so you're a high D and a high I, and you're adapted. Your D drops down a little bit, which I think is on purpose. It's actually your high D quality that makes it drop down. So you're less aggressive as a high D could be. Possibly.
How very high D of me.
Yes. To hide part of you.
Right.
I'm a high S, high C. And the reason I wanted us both together is we're very, very high in both of these letters on both of our scales, which is not that normal. So I thought this would be a good way to disc month to talk about this. So where do you think I just got you a new disc. Did you look over it?
I did.
Did anything look?
I knew you'd ask, and so I did.
10 minutes before the podcast.
Well, actually, I looked at it the other day when I took it, mostly because I was curious. I mean, honestly, but Mike, it's been quite a few years since I've taken one, so I was like, I wonder if things have changed, and surprisingly, not that much.
Did anything stand out that you'd kind of forgotten about?
Nothing really stood out or surprised me because it wasn't that different. My C is so low that I will not remember any of those details. I do not care about them. All I want is the result, which is the same answer that I expected it to be, right? High I, high D.
So that is the big thing about a high D, is they want results.
Correct.
Just give us some insight into the high D brain about how it is results and how you see things and how you get past the things that hold some other people back because of your natural desire to get results and get things done.
Well, I think for starters, it's a little bit challenging to slow us down, to ask us these kinds of questions and have us like actually stop and think about it for a minute, because we're just so used to running, just drive, go, 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 get it done, which, helps when you're leading a team because everybody, kind of follows your energy, but it also can railroad people. And so that's when my high I steps in and says, okay, how can I encourage? How can I influence? How can I massage the personality of this person in order to get the result that I want? Because my high D still is there, right? So I don't know, is that enough insight into how it works, or
just how you think it works? Do you look at many things as what are the results I'm going to get from this?
Almost everything.
And that's just your natural.
Yeah, I don't really know how to not look at it that way. Right. I look at what I eat that way. I'm like, I look at what is my optimum type of exercise today that I feel like doing that's going to get me the result. And I only have this much time. So that's just how I look at things. Same thing in business, right? If we're looking at a tool or a system, I'm like, okay, I've got $500 to spend. Where would my $500 be best spent? Should I do it with this? Should I do it there? Should I do it over here? Should I do it all at once? Should I spend it on a coach? I look at pretty much everything that way. And I will say, in my younger years, I didn't recognize that not everyone did this. And so this is when you learn how to kind of dial it back sometimes, because you can kind of railroad over people saying, well, I'm just trying to get the result that I'm looking for. And also, didn't you tell me you wanted the same result? So, we should be on the same page. Let's just go do it. So that's something that I've learned how to dial that back, just to, work with other styles and other work personalities, right?
Right. So I'm a high C, which means typically I want to be accurate.
Correct.
I want to be precise. How
Yeah.
much does that describe you?
Not that much, but I want to be correct because I want the result quickly. So I don't want to make mistakes, but it's not about the correctness,
Right.
precision. It's still about the result, if that makes sense.
Right. You want the best way, but you really don't care if it sticks that way, however you get there. Not that you went through the correct roads and took the turn here and whatever. You're like, we got there and that was the result. Whereas the flip side is, no, this is the way to go, do this. I'm process your results, which is also why we worked well together. You had the thing you wanted, you put on my plate, that high S. I want to take care of things. I want to make things happen. Dr. A talks about this. I don't know if it was in my podcast with him or just a class, but he said the high D comes in and dumps all the ideas they want you to do. And the high S is the one who'll get them done. The high D, and see if you agree, changes their mind a lot. And
was that a whiplash? Was that a whiplash effect right there?
I had a flashback. So the high D gets a bunch of ideas like, let's do all these things. And the high S says, we're only doing these other things.
Correct. I think this is the thing too. I will say this about working with you and alongside you, which has always been such a joy and so much fun. Also, we're really funny together. So we enjoy that banter. You know, there's a high theoretical that's going on that we're like, well, what about this? But part of it, I think, is even further than just the disc is like the male female way that we process information. I'm so verbal and I process outside of me, right? Whereas like if I were a high C, even being a female, I still might process information outside of me more than like a high C male would, right? Where I'm a high D, I'm going to process outside. I'm a female, I'm really going to process outside. So it's going to sound like a brain dump pretty much all the time. I know that's exhausting for other people.
Well, and this is an interesting thing is that, so the D and the I are external. They're about outward. This is the D, go out and do the thing. The I is go out and find the people. The S is internal.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to find the people I already have in my network to help me if I need that kind of help. C, I need to be inside. So I just overthinking, analysis by paralysis. So I'm not 100% sure how much that is a female male thing, as it is completely a dis thing. You are completely external, which, and the thing is for me, you are not the typical high DI, and this may be a motivators where we do sync up better that way, because a lot of these high DIs, they can be more interesting.
Challenging, maybe?
Challenging. I like that word. So for me, that's a high S, high C. You don't really know my emotions, except for everything's a joke. That's the one emotion I'll put out there to create the harmony, but you don't really know what's going on by just looking at me from the outside. That makes it hard when someone's too lively, too whatever, and you're like, I don't know how to deal with this, or this is where a D and an I can have trouble connecting with an S and a C. They're like, hey, come on, let's enjoy the party. You're like, nope, I'm really enjoying this corner over here. And they don't get that kind of, they don't understand each other. The I and the C have the hardest time communicating because of that. The I is over here so bright and the C is just like, I just want to go do my thing.
Okay, well, where does an introvert extrovert come into that?
You know, there's a lot of different ways to look at that, but typically the S's and C's are going to be more introverted because they're more internal processing. And that's where, like for me, you come up to me with a question, hey, Mike, let's go do this. I have to think through, and then you and I talked about this when dealing with different situations, is like, I have to process. I'm not good at coming up with those answers for new things off the top of my head. If something I've done a lot of times, and this is where I can kind of look like a D, in that if I know the system, I know the answer, and I will be direct and I will be whatever. But if it's a new thing, I'm very slow to get there. I have to process, to think out all the possibilities, where you as a D don't. So back to your introversion, I'm not 100% sure, but just based on that internal part is where most introversion comes in, but that's not perfect. Some people see introversion as scared to talk to people. Other people see it as you go off to go get yourself,
Recharge.
and which is more of what you are. And
Yeah.
they don't really talk about in the disc of how that kind of breaks across the profiles.
That would be an interesting research project, wouldn't it? I know you're going to take notes. You're going to think about it. I'm like, no, because I do see, clearly high D, high I, been like this my whole life. It's not really changing, but I am also quite introverted. Like I actually enjoy working by myself at home, no other people around. And when I go out into the public and when I'm doing events, it's still very draining, right? So I do have to go home and kind of regroup and recharge. Whereas, for example, Jamie, he's charged by the people. So he actually gets drained when he's alone, where I'm the exact opposite. And that's like the introvert extrovert balance, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm curious, because I have really very little C and very, very little S.
Now, there's a theory I have with this whole introversion idea about not wanting to be around people. What I found for myself during the pandemic was my introversion was more about protecting me from bad people. Just where I grew up, a lot of people are doing bad things. And so I kept people at a distance. And over time, it was just a vulnerability issue. I think possibly in your situation, you're a high D that wants to get things done. And people can slow you down if they're dragging you into something else that you don't want to be in. So I'm wondering if it's more of a defense mechanism. And there's also, you have goals. And if you're walking over a bumpy path, it just drains your energy. And so if you're talking to people and where it really broke for me is like, look, I can talk to someone about mindset, the disc, real estate. I can talk for hours. I was like, how could I do that? But I don't want to talk about the Kardashians. I don't want to talk about gossip, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And then the pandemic hit and I was like, oh, wait, I am missing people more than I thought. Because when it first happened, I was like, oh yeah, I've got my chair here, got the TV. I'm going to watch Tiger King and eat Oreos. This is awesome. I get to be in my cave. I was like, no, I actually kind of got a little lonely. So I wonder if it has to do with that.
So it's still actually more of a high D characteristic than anything else, because I'm not getting the result if I'm being slowed down by all of the peripheral conversations that people are dragging me into.
You go to the party because you know that this is part of the results of life or whatever, right. But there's a limit to the party because the D and the C are task oriented. This is where we get along. There's tasks to be done. We want to get them done. Where we could have friction is you want it done yesterday, and I have to find out the 17 different ways that it could go wrong, the 12 ways that it could get done right. And, oh, I just went down a rabbit hole on this other thing. Let's try this, So, yeah.
But what I found is when you give a high C time to process and you explain why you want the result you want, and you let them figure it out, they're going to come up with like the most brilliant plan. And I didn't have to do it. I'm like, yay, this is great. This is why we worked well together.
Dr. A said something interesting, which is to take the stress off of a C, because I hate to be wrong. I hate to give the wrong answer. And so I need to go and find out way too much information that doesn't actually help me, but I think it will. The way to take that stress off them is ask them for 2 solutions. And then you're the one who makes the decision. Because then it's not on them if it goes wrong. And I will tell you, it pains me if I go, here's a solution. I'm like, oh, please work, because my identity, my core is in there is like, I can't be wrong. If I say something, and this is the top of the C, is accurate. Mm-hmm. And that holds me back. Whereas you're like, that didn't work, don't care. And I'm like, but yeah. For me, I said it would happen. Oh my gosh. And that's one of the things that makes me be slower with doing things and trying new things, because I don't want to be wrong, because that's just the wrong thing.
Yeah, that's wrong. Wrong is wrong. Yeah. For you, wrong is wrong. For me, wrong just means next, next,
right.
Try it a different way. It's like putting a puzzle piece together and you're like, wait, it just didn't fit. So I'm just going to twist it.
Right.
Oh, now it did. Yay. I have no like it doesn't like wound my soul if it didn't work. I'm like, I'll just keep trying until it does, or better yet, I'm going to ask Mike, where does this go? And he'll be like, well, it could be here. Now I'm learning this. It could be here or here. So take the pressure off you. There you go. I remember when I first looked at your disc, because you were thinking, oh, I want to go back into sales. I want to be part of a team. Let's see what this looks like. And I was like, are you sure you want to be in sales? Are you sure you want to be in sales? Because I saw this piece of you, and that was a good fit, really good fit, creating that role. And then, of course, I knew that you needed more detail and more information than I could probably humanly compile. But I still did it because I needed the result. I was like, okay, I put 2 profiles together, and I was like, here's your task list, and here's your other task list, and here's your 2 jobs that are merging into one. What do you think? And you liked that checkbox.
I had to take some time to think about it.
You did. And there was no pressure. There was no rush on it, So
I find the disc to be amazing in every person that I've ran through a disc, shown a disc to. It puts things into words that people like, I never thought of it like that. And that exactly nails me. And this disc I took, there's a line in there. I'm like, oh, that nails me. And I didn't, I'm not telling anyone what that line was.
I was just going to ask, I'm like, what is it?
Nope.
Well, and it's so cool to even have, I've been using it for a gazillion years, it feels like, and then in the role on my team, you were using it more than I was, in hiring and training. And so even today, I'm like, I learned something new. I'm like, oh, now I know if I've got a high C, 2 options. I didn't know that. Probably because it was in there somewhere and I just didn't read the whole thing, right? I just looked for the chart and the graph. I'm like, got it, right? But I didn't read the line about presenting a high C with 2 options. Now I know.
All righty. So let's go to the I. You are impulsive. That sound like you?
What? Never.
Gregarious. Persuasive.
Clearly. I got you to come work for me.
And then on the exact opposite, I am introspective, pessimistic, quiet.
You are the black hat. You are the black hat. It's
suspicious.
Yes.
Oh, I am so suspicious.
I know. Oh, that's so great. But this is also why we were such a good team, and we still are, even in this. It's like when I brought to you, I was like, hey, I'm looking at, this other brokerage. What do you think? I knew that you were going to be like, it's a horrible idea. Right? Like I knew that Mike was going to be like, this is bad, bad, bad. We don't want to change. No, 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 no. And when you really did your research and I let you have lots of time. And when you came back and you were kind of like, I remember the way you said it too, it wasn't that positive, but it was, I don't really see anything wrong with this move. Like, and it was almost like you were surprised by it, right? I don't know if you remember having that conversation in our office. You were like, I don't really see anything wrong with this. And you were even surprised by your own, lack of skepticism, I think. So that's when I knew. I was like, oh yeah, I got it. Mike's in, so. And I trusted you because I knew you do really good research and you do really good due diligence, which is what makes you an excellent agent and a super, super good trainer. Anyway, that was a fun example of like putting that to use in my high D sort of way. And then I had to bring out the I to convince everybody else, right?
Well, in the DS mix, when they can work together, they are going to get a lot of stuff done because the D's got the ideas and will do the push and give the path. And the S is the persistent one. Mm-hmm. Do it, get done. So on the S, you are discontented, energetic, fidgety, and impetuous. Does that sound like you?
What? Fidgety? What? Sit still?
Fidgety. I love that. Discontented. Discontented is a great word.
It's a good word.
Always looking for something different, something better, something better results.
Better results. Quicker, faster, cooler, better. makes more people happy. That's also the high I. Like I know the S is also like the people pleasing side, but like the I is like this is going to be fun. Like, let's also make it fun. And if I can do all of those things for the whole group, that feels like such a win to me, and that's why I think we do so many events, because that's how we draw the people together.
Right.
We have a party, they're feeling great. They get FaceTime with, other people and get answers to their questions. And, I remember like pretty much always dragging Mike off the wall, like come and join the party and talk to two people, like just two people. Right. But yeah, I think that's part of the high I and it works with the high D, is like get the result, but also let's do it in a upbeat, energetic, cheerleadery sort of way.
Well, Dr. A says that the natural charismatic people are the high DIs.
There you go.
They will push to get things done, to get people together. Everyone loves them when they're around them. They're those. Oh yeah, Dynamo. Did you see that?
I don't remember that.
At the top of your behavioral style is Dynamo.
Dynamo.
You want to know what mine is?
I just saw like a caricature type, like pow, wow, kind of
exactly
in my head. Yeah,
the
cool.
1960s pow.
Yeah.
So your behavioral style is Dynamo. You know what mine is?
Tell me.
Formalist. What is that?
Well, that is boring. Formalist. I don't know. That actually, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what to do with that.
Dynamos will make an attempt to adjust or modify the thoughts and actions of others. They are good at understanding how to steer others towards a predetermined result. They will set the stage for the desired result before they verbalize the desire. Their strong persuasive skills can elicit cooperation from others, but sometimes create feelings of others being manipulated. Dynamos can be intimidating and can seek to override the decision of others because you have your results you want to get. There's no perfect disc profile. There are pluses and minuses. And I'm going to ask this before I forget about it. When you look at the assessment and you see a list of strengths and weaknesses, which do you look at first?
Strengths.
See, I have this theory that high Ds and high Is, they look to the strengths. The high S's and the high C's immediately go look to the weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've been running these people through the discs, the S's and C's want to talk about their weaknesses. Why can't I be more like this? And that became such a glaring, obvious thing to me. I was just amazed. And so now I'm really working on explaining to people what the superpower is of their S or C.
Yeah, I think when you're coaching and when you're training people, focusing on their strengths that's the best. They're going to be engaged. They're going to perform better. They're going to enjoy it. They're going to actually want to talk to you again. If all you're doing is like reminding them about their issues or their problems, that's not the best, feeling of a conversation. So I was going to say too, I think part of the battle between the high D and I and the high S and C is when you do focus on your strengths, on each other's strengths, and you can do it in a way that really builds up the other person, you're both going to be like two cats purring around each other. You're going to enjoy working together so much because the high D is going to get so much done. They're going to love this person, right? The high I is going to be like, I know exactly what to say. If I tell Mike he's right, guess what? He's the happiest guy and he's going to do it again and again. And I'm going to tell him he's brilliant, all the things, right? I'm going to build him up. And then the high I is super happy because Mike's happy, right? And then the S is happy because all the jobs got done. The high D is happy. Wow, this is amazing. And the high C got to figure all the puzzle pieces out and build it twice in two different fashions. I learned that today. And then everybody's super happy. This is again, kind of like we would jokingly call ourselves like the Wonder Twin powers activate. But it's true, when you really focus on those positives, so much can get done and so much fun can be had. It's my D and my I showing up for you.
Well, this is, I think, what made you, me, and Jamie a good team, which was that high DI, he's a high I, high S. He's got to have some D in there for the things he does. And then I'm the high SC. And so we just covered that entire thing. And no, we didn't see things all the same way, but that high S in me, that's something Dr. A talks about, is they're the person that brings in harmony. If you have two people who aren't doing well on the team, whatever, bringing Mike in the middle, which also,
Yep.
that's what I did between the two of you when you're like, I got this idea and he's got this idea. And I was like, no, come on, everyone, let's just let's get some harmony. But yeah, I thought that three different perspectives, all on the high scale, it worked really well.
We got a lot accomplished, and we had a lot of fun along the way. We created some really good systems and tools. We documented it, right? The high C was super happy with that. And then the high D is happy with that because, again, we had really good results. So
here's my behavioral style: formalist.
Formalist.
Formalists rely upon procedure and structure in all aspects of life. They are detail oriented and seek perfection. They need to know the expectations and timetable for their work. That was a place where it was difficult with you. And it's difficult anytime there's a D, because they're just like, I just have this idea, just do this thing.
Yeah.
I'm like,
there's
but
no
how?
time. I don't know.
How do you want that done? And how will I know it's right when I'm done? And that's the issue with my profile. They get bogged down in detail and will not rush important decisions because they're scared to be wrong. They will take a risk if they have the facts to support it. And that's one of the things I've been trying to reconcile, is how in the world did I become a real estate agent with a high C? Their main thing is fear of making a mistake, fear of the low risk. But it was the people that I saw succeeding going, okay, I know how they did it. I don't think they're good at it. So I went and did it. It's pretty much the same thing with coaching. Saw someone who I didn't like how they did it, said I can do it better. They may be initially suspicious of personal compliments, praise, or flattery. This is interesting. So a high S does not prefer to be praised in public. They prefer to get praised one-on-one. They do not like to show out in front of everybody else. They don't like that, those eyes on. This is different than the behavioral style. They're just something, because this was something that would happen sometimes in our meetings. We have the big deal. And there was times where I was like, oh, I want that. But then when I did get it, I was like, oh, I really don't like the attention. And that disc explains it. I much preferred one-on-one. Hey, this was good. Whoever it is, being that 5-star award that goes around in real estate, whatever. I don't want to be up on a stage getting an award, but the one-on-one means so much more to me. So any of you people who have high S's on your team, compliment them, praise them more often in private than public. It's going to hit better and make them not feel like, oh, I don't deserve this, or I just don't want to take the limelight away from somebody else. That was the other thing, is like, oh, well, I think that person deserved it more than me this week, or whatever.
Or even in the moment, you might know that it's true and you might know that it's accurate and appreciate it, but you just don't want the eyes on you. So like that piece alone can be so disruptive in your own head, and you're like, what's going on? So then you start to kind of fill it in with, why do I feel this way? Like, oh, it's because this person deserves it. But in the God's honest truth, you know that you've earned it and you know you've done a good job.
Right.
Which I think is why you're a very good coach, because also in a one-on-one scenario, you get feedback directly from, the person that you're coaching. That's like, wow, Mike, thanks. That was brilliant. That really helped me. Right. Which I think this is like the perfect career for you because of that.
I am so much better one-on-one than in a group, because I can read the one person. I can lean into that person. Yeah, absolutely. So let's look at the C. This one, we could not be further apart.
I know.
Accurate is, well, let's just guess. Accurate versus arbitrary. Who's who on that one?
Meh. I like ish. I'm good with ish.
You're defiant.
I'm not.
I am conservative. You are fearless. I am exacting. You, obstinate. Obstinate, rebellious, and
Oh
sarcastic.
my gosh. How did we ever manage to sit in a small office together? This is insane. You probably wanted to kill me so many days.
Oh,
Whoa.
no, I just wanted more direction sometimes so I could be correct.
And then when you were done, I would just tell you, you did a great job
Mm-hmm.
and you were right. I feel like I've said Mike is brilliant
Mm-hmm.
more times than anything else to you. It's true.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but you did a great job. And this is part of, I think, again, when we talk about the high D and just being like, well, we could change our mind, but also we do want the result, right? And so if it doesn't totally matter how we get there to us,
Right.
I don't mind however you choose to do it. If it works, great.
Right. Just get it done. Don't care how. Just get it done.
Done is better than perfect. I mean, how many, might have been something I said more often than Mike is brilliant, although it's probably a pretty close, although I don't count. So it's an ish.
So if you look at an issue and you think, what if, I'm leading you on this one, how would you finish that? What if, here's a new idea, Sherine. You would think, well, what do you think the next couple of words are? Not sure. I may be leading too hard here.
I feel like what you are thinking is, what if it doesn't work? But that's not what I would think. I would
exactly.
Think,
you're nailing it. So what would you think?
I would think, oh, what if we could do this? Like, yeah, like, or what if we could do that? Or what if we could accomplish this? Or what if we could build that? Like, ooh. Then another piece, because again, I am results driven and I know there's way smarter people out there. I read a ton. I know there's way more brilliant people out there than myself. So I always think, ooh, who else did this? And what if we could do it just a little bit better? Or what if we could incorporate their piece of A and this one's piece of B and that one's piece of C and put it all together in our own, fantastic, creation and do something even better, bigger, faster, cooler.
And that's one place that we are really similar, is that the C and the D both want to make things better. Now there's some motivators in there as well, but I always look at things like, how can I make this better? Which was always fun for me. You're like, hey, here's this. All right, let's work on it. And we loved brainstorming that stuff. Now the what if, this is where we are exactly the difference. What if it goes wrong? Mm-hmm. Like Mike, well, what if it goes right? This was a good learning from you, just to see that other model of it. And that's the thing, is you're not all of a sudden going to be into data the same way that I am, or being precise. And I'm not going to all of a sudden just give up all risk and just let go. But what we can do is model the other people. That makes sense?
Yep.
So understanding how someone else sees it and thinks it can give us a bit of a blueprint. It's not going to, like me talking about how I get past my own C and my own S to do things. That's where I can really coach people. I can't tell them how to all of a sudden just do it and take on that attitude of just do it, which is probably more of your motto, right? Just do it.
Yeah, I think I posted something about that to social media literally yesterday. So yeah, just do it. Well, so here's a good example of some of that, like, I call it like Debbie Downer, negative Nancy, like kind of that talk that happens versus like, people will say to me, well, that's not reality, like, you're crazy, rose-colored glasses, build whatever you want and everything's going to be hunky-dory attitude is ridiculously unrealistic. And I subscribe to the idea of like, but if we try, what if, on the positive side, what if it actually works? Like, wouldn't that be amazing? And I'm not afraid of being wrong and I'm not afraid of failure. So, that doesn't really even enter into my mind. For example, I wanted to put an offer on a house, and this market right now is super, super unfriendly to buyers, right? How many offers are agents writing for the average buyer right now? Like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, like even good agents, right? Like you lose. And I was like, I just want to write on this one house because it has the exposure that I wanted. It has the tree that I wanted. Like visually it's appealing. The size is good. Like all of the things. It's in the right school district. Like the things that I was like, this is a good house. This is a great fit. What if we got it? You know, what if? And meanwhile, Jamie is like, well, that's not reality. And like, we're writing a contingent offer right now and nobody wants a contingent offer. I'm like, yeah, but they could, because their timeline works with our timeline and that allows us time to sell. Like, I'm just like, let's just try it. So we wrote it up and there was another offer and we still won.
Wow.
What if? Just try. Even today, I get those Darren Hardys that get emailed to me, and I don't know if you ever listen to him, and I've been listening to him for years, but he talked about, if you don't ask, 100% of the time, the answer is going to be no, right? If you ask, there's at least a chance, right? So I was like, that's how I felt. I was like, let's just go for it. Let's see what happens. What if?
There's a book, Aladdin, something, but it's basically about giving yourself the power to ask. It came out in the 90s. And it's for those people like me who are like, well, this isn't going to happen, or, what will they think if I ask this? Because, that high S being so high, I'm not the one to rock the boat. And so that fear, like, well, what if I do this? What if it's harmony? If I mess up the harmony, now I can do so much more for someone else than I can for myself. I don't want to be the disruptor or whatever. So I can ask the question when I have someone that I'm doing it for. This is where that high S, I feel like this is why I work with people, is getting that mission. When I got into real estate, I made expired calls, which does not fit a high SC. But I knew some of the people who were making expired calls, and I saw it as a mission. I was saving people from those bad agents. And I had to take on a mission to get past my own need not to take care of myself. The high S will take care of other people so much more than they'll take care of themselves. And so that mission is how I did it. And that's, there's a book called The Alter Ego Effect. And this is actually how a lot of sports and a lot of high level people, they turn into a different person to go do the thing that they can't normally do. And because, like telling your kid to take medicine, having your dog, you can make them take the terrible medicine. You can all these stuff. But when it's us, like, well, maybe I won't, I don't need to take that today, or, tomorrow I'll start my workout, whatever. For someone else, we can do so much more. So it's kind of taking on a different ego, alter ego, to get things done.
Well, and how does the motivators play into that? Like, we've talked a lot about the DISC as far as like, preferences and work style and communication style and learning and all that kind of stuff. But how do the motivators really play into that? And do you think that they're as impactful as, curious, just tell me a little bit about that.
So this is where I was having a lot of trouble with my high C, in that I don't like rules. The high C is supposed to be about following rules, but I only follow the rules that I think make sense. Now, barring any outside information, I may follow the rule because I don't know any better. But the second that I think I know a better path, I don't follow the rules. And I wondered about that. I was like, no, a C, you follow whatever rules. So it's for some people, in some discs, it's called regulatory, and in others, it is traditional. I am the lowest when it comes to traditional. I don't understand the Queen of England. I don't understand a lot of rituals and a lot of things that people do. I'm just not about that, because my individualistic is quite high. This is why I wanted to create Roaring Agents. This is why I don't want to really go and be a coach at another company. I don't want someone else telling me how I have to coach. I don't want to have to follow someone else's system, because I think I'm going to make a better system. So
I think you're right. And I actually do. But where does mine fall in that? Did you look at mine?
Yeah. So your regulatory is actually lower than mine.
How is that possible? No, I know. I'm like my individualistic, or what do they call it? Yeah.
So
off the charts.
So what's nice about this report, instead of just giving you a number, they have a word chart. And I love this. So they've got 8 words on each bar. I am spontaneous, surprisingly. I am spontaneous. I don't think that's the right word. I think there should be a different word in there, but you're lower, defiant.
Ooh.
And if we flip over to individualistic, which you're actually much higher than me, which I think the C is holding that back a little bit, maybe, I'm guessing, but you are unrestricted. So unrestricted and defiant.
Good luck, right? And then you wonder why you pulled your hair out when you worked with me.
And your aesthetic. No, let's start with my aesthetic. I think, yeah, I'm at the bottom of aesthetic. And for this disc, they're a little bit more about the ecology of everything, like how you value just overall symmetry and systems and stuff. But I am at the bottom, which is they call me grounded. You're much higher. You're above the midline at divergent, which is a weird word. You're between imaginative and unconventional.
I like divergent.
And you have to be matchy-matchy.
I have to be matchy-matchy. Things need to look like, even, Mike makes fun of me, but every time we do one of these Zoom calls, we have to adjust where we're sitting so that our head sizes are similar, because I need it that way. I'm like, is it OCD? No, it's just, I have this matchy-matchy idea that, I don't want to be like a giant talking head when he's like a little munchkin, or vice versa, right? Like, you don't want this. You want it to be even.
So
it's a motivator. Now we know.
The motivators are like the engines of light that going through the prism of the disc. And I was having some people I could not peg on the disc because it didn't make sense until I did the motivators. I got certified on the disc, which included the motivators, which we really hadn't been doing because we've been doing those cheap free discs that don't give you everything.
Right. They don't give you all of the details. This one is a lot beefier for sure.
Yeah, this is with the motivators, yours is 54 pages. I think they're all about 54 pages. And understanding how the motivators makes everything so much clearer. And you can have someone that has almost identical disc, but that motivators can be so much different. Plus, look, not everyone, a ton of people, and I see videos on this all the time where they call this a personality profile. It is not. It is a behavioral assessment. And Myers-Briggs is a personality test, but guess what? Only numbers. Only 60% of people actually fit those 16 characteristics perfectly. The other 40%, they kind of go, you fit over here. And the truth, the value to you hiring for the team or for an agent that's going to work with someone is I thought about 3 different things. I lost my path. They're going hiring. I lost it. I thought 3 different things.
Training.
They'll come back. So on your motivators, you are controlling under power, which is just mid-level. I'm controlling as well. I want things my way as well. You're not domineering, forceful, or authoritative on that list. You are measured. You're just individualistic and you want things your way and you're defiant. You're competitive. I am 1 level below you on economic, which I think economic with the high D is about results. It's about the ROI. What is the benefit to this to me? Unfortunately, with my high C and my high theoretical, I can take too long to make the decision of where is that benefit. Then there's the value of the risk. Then I'm like, I just don't know. What if it goes wrong? So.
Well, and then we both have pretty high theoretical, if I recall correct.
Yours is actually low on this list.
On that one, it used to be higher.
Now what I'm seeing is, like I said, their words match up a little bit differently. There's also, this disc has 7 motivators versus 6, and power is an extra one. And I'm wondering if they kind of move things over there. But your theoretical, which makes sense though, is it marks you as street smart.
Get it done.
So 1 above is reflective, 1 down is intuitive. I think street smart, because you're not inquisitive, you're not investigative. You could call you studious, but I think that's only when it makes sense for the thing you want to do. Because you had that book. I said, hey, I got this book. You're like, yeah, I got that one like 5 years ago, but I never read it.
Yeah. Or I read part of it. I even underlined things, but then I didn't implement because it didn't fit in at the time.
Yeah. So me, I'm not the top of the theoretical like I was on another chart, but this one at the top is scholarly. And I don't think I think fact finder exactly fits me. So yeah, this nailed me really well on altruistic. You are self-focused, which is the opposite of me, which is sacrificial.
Yeah. Altruistic. I love it. No. Yep. You are very much that.
So the last thing I wanted to cover was at the final page-ish, page 47, they talk about just some of the different ways that the styles work. So the needs, and this is where I think you're a high D versus the high I. The D needs control. The high wants approval. And I don't think approval fits as high. And this is also where the motivators come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
That changes a little bit, but these are just in general. I want routine and standards. Those fit me just fine. Do those agree? Do you agree with those?
I do agree with those. Absolutely.
So when in conflict, the high D will make demands.
Yes, I will.
The high I will make attacks.
Ooh, ouch.
I don't think you're that person.
Maybe we didn't work together quite long enough in order for you to find out.
The high S just complies, whatever you say. And then the high C just avoids.
Hides in the corner.
Yep.
You know, I was thinking back to when you were talking about personality test, when how I remember so many times when an agent would, this was one of the first things that we had them do, right? When they wanted to apply, it would be like, great. It was kind of like our first, standard. Can you actually respond with the completed, quiz? And people would call it a personality test. And I was always very clearly calling it your work style preference.
Right.
Because it's not like none of it's absolute,
No,
right? I mean,
no.
people change and, you can dial things up and dial things down. But I think that's really important to understand when you're using this tool is it is a work style preference.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get too locked into it for yourself either. And I appreciate, one of the things that we learned when we were learning how to use it well was validating it, right? Does this seem like you? Is this accurate? And that gives a person, a little bit of wiggle room, right? You're like, well, I don't know, Sherine, is this really you? And I'm like, well, actually, yeah, it's totally me, or, or not, right? So it makes it more effective, which of course goes back to the result.
And this is where it is super powerful, is not so much the numbers on the letters. It's about really going through those questions. How do you feel about this? Where do you think this is? And the conversations that we would have with people in that interview process were so much richer when we were saying, tell us about this, or, it says this, what do you think about that? And that's just amazing. The strength of this.
To that specific, having that conversation and the depth of conversation. We would joke occasionally that, I would feel accomplished if the other person had tears, because then you've gotten to a real and a raw place with them. And I cannot tell you how many interviews I've conducted where the person does end up having an emotional outburst of some sort. It's not like, crying in response to me, but it's like, and I'm able to get so deep so quickly, and reading them using the disc and getting to really, really raw places with what they're really looking for. And obviously it's a tool that helps us when you're placing someone in a position, but also just understanding that it is that powerful. So use it carefully and wisely. And I always appreciated that you were extremely careful, right? Even now, just like, okay, let's use it carefully and make sure that we're, not abusing this information and this power that we have over these people, right? Which is clearly not what it's intended for. But the other thing I was going to say that I always liked was, okay, so you get deep quickly, but of course, what's the purpose of that? Like, are you just trying to connect with another person and have a good conversation? or are you really trying to help them get to what their dreams are? Right. And that to me is what, what motivates me is I want to help you be better. Like that is like the ultimate system that I would love to, build and conquer. And I think this is why we mesh so well on this, because you have a similar intention with the people that you coach. And I feel the same way. Like if I bring somebody in to my team, I'm like, they're like a new kid. Like they're my kid. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to be mama bear. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to keep you safe, but I'm going to feed you that nasty medicine when you need it too. Right. So it's a fun tool to use. And when you use it properly and carefully and cautiously, it can be extremely effective.
I just remembered the thing that I forgot earlier, which is about the personality test versus the behavioral assessment of the DISC, is that it doesn't really matter how people think, because I think all kinds of things that I never do or say or whatever. You really want to know how people are going to behave, especially if they're on your team.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you understand this as a salesperson, you know how someone's going to behave once you can kind of peg them on the DISC profile, start to learn, the more you learn about them, you understand, well, this is not how to approach them. I need to ask them 2 questions, give me 2 answers. I need to give them some time, because we care about how people behave so much more than really what they think, because thinking doesn't really come out that much especially in our work relationships and these one-off real estate examples.
That led me to one other thought that I was thinking earlier too, is how their DISC might come out differently when they are under an extremely stressful situation,
Mm-hmm.
in their life. And I remember giving this to someone and being completely shocked by the result, because I knew them and I was like, this doesn't match up at all. But then understanding that if they're going through something extremely emotional or extremely difficult or challenging or something, that can absolutely affect the result as well. So that was something that I wanted to bring up and, kind of get your take on it. Have you seen that? Like, because you've been using it even longer than I have now.
I haven't had the pleasure of running it with multiple people over a period of time to really see it. Dr. A talks about how we can have these things affect us and you can change. Usually, the thing that we don't talk about in the DISC is that it's your behaviors. We don't know why they're there.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if it's because of the way you were raised, if because of different instances. And this is, because a lot of things we do are defense mechanisms that we learned when we were young. So we really don't know why they got there and how easy they are to move, but we have seen people change over, it's called SEE, significant emotional event. Your personality and your behaviors aren't likely to change without those significant emotional events happening. Moving can do it. Look, the pandemic, I've started asking people, what happened during the pandemic that you became aware of yourself? Almost everyone has a story. They're like, oh, I realized this, like mine about my vulnerability and, what really an introvert I was. That's what I realized. And everyone has some kind of story. So this pandemic has affected a lot of people that, their DISCs may have changed. With this DISC, my D actually went up. I don't know if that's because between the time I took the last one and this one, I'm self-employed again, doing my own thing, and I have to go do these things. I don't know if that's where the higher D is coming up. So yeah, it's just interesting.
It is interesting. Mine was a little bit different, but not significantly. I thought maybe it would be a little more different, but it really wasn't. One thing that I did notice too, I have given this to multiple people like over the age of 65, just to kind of see. And some of them have been retired and some of them are still working in different fields and whatnot. But one of the things that I found really fascinating is almost every single time they were much more balanced. They weren't an extreme one way or the other of, any of the DIS or C. And I thought that was interesting. I haven't done it enough to know if this is just happened to be the retirees that I know, or if it was something that would, be more consistent across the country.
Dr. A was talking about something happens around 55, where there's an emotional thing that happens. I forget what it is. it didn't stick for some reason, but 55, you just don't care anymore about some
It's like,
things.
whatever. Maybe that's what it is. It's like, whatever.
So preferred tasks. The high D wants challenging.
Really?
You like to be challenged?
Probably.
You don't want to do boring stuff.
No, I don't want to be bored. That's for sure. So I will say, even, I hired a trainer this year. This is the first time. I am not a gym person. I have never been a gym person. Suddenly I'm going to the gym 3 times a week, which is a lot for me. And I tell her, I'm like, do something that tricks my brain. Because if I have to engage my brain, then I will do it. If it's just like, just put on more weight and do more, like, no, I'm not going to be motivated by that. That is boring. So clearly I do want to be challenged.
The I wants to be people related, which there's some of that to you, but I think that's where it kind of it depends, that one's not so obvious to me, right? Like you'd be fine. You were an editor, you're fine working on things on your own, right?
Mm-hmm.
The S wants to be scheduled. And that's one of the hardest things about real estate, was that lack of a schedule, of someone randomly calling, wanting to go show a home when I thought I had my day. I like to kind of have things planned out, which is, with coaching, it's great. All right, this person, I'm calling them at 3, this person I'm calling at 9, this person, I love that so much. I know exactly what's going to happen. My wife's like, oh, I'm going to meet friends on Sunday. What time? I don't know, whenever. Come on, figure out. not that it matters to me at all. I just want to know when things are happening.
Need to know. So this is curious to me, because a very good buyer agent is going to have a high S. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit anti-schedule, because they do have to just on a fly go show a house. They answer the phone. Okay, I'm over here, I'm over there. So how does that work?
Now, remember, I'm at the very top of the S. So you're seeing that on steroids. I think that drops back a little bit for most normal ISs, and that they're not. But this was my problem. Like, one of the reasons that I came and talked to your team is because my wife is a teacher. And so she was doing things on the weekend, and I'm like, well, I got this one client who may want to see this house this weekend. And I felt bad trying to give them to somebody else or not being around, because that high S, I got to take care of people. And so I didn't want to not be there for the client, and I didn't have the team around me to, and so I went to go find another place I could get rid of that anxiety about not taking care of my clients well enough. That's where a big part of that started.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think I'm just on steroids with that schedule. But the thing is with the team, people can call me anytime and I'll answer the calls, and I love that. Yeah. But it's that fear of not being available for someone drives me nuts.
Interesting.
Which is a thing I have to work on. All right. The C is an organizer. That one's a weird one. I'm not sure how to really apply that one, because my office is not organized. But when things happen, I do want to put people in place, like, here, look, do this, go do this. The task oriented, make things happen. Personal strength. High D is a problem solver. Do you agree?
Yes.
High I is an encourager.
Yes.
S is a supporter.
I agree with that.
Oh, I jumped lines. So this is where the C is an organizer. Personal strength. This is what I've done with Roaring Agents. I put together the podcast, put together this training, put together this webinar. I like to put those things together. I just built like 3 landing pages yesterday. I love doing that. I'm comfortable with order and planning. Absolutely. I had a coach I was talking to, and they're like, yeah, with this coaching place I'm at, you don't have to build anything. It's just all there. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of like that part. I want to build.
You're like, that's the most fun. I enjoy that part the most. Well, that's like me and this microphone that sits here that I don't use because I can't figure out how to set it up. And I could, but it's just too many details and it's fine. The computer audio is going to be great. The opposite.
So let's look at personal fear. Losing. Do you hate to lose?
I don't like losing.
Where are you on the rejection scale of the high I?
I don't care if I'm rejected, though. I just keep going, but I'm also not usually. So I have this like oddly optimistic, insight. I don't know, whatever.
That is a thing about the high I's, is they are very optimistic.
Yeah.
which can mean that they don't always pick up on cues where other people are unhappy, like, yeah, come on, let's just everyone have the party. And yeah.
Totally. We can totally miss the cues sometimes.
So personal fear of the S, sudden change.
Pandemic.
And then the C is being wrong. So suddenly to find out I was wrong. Oh my God.
Oh, just suddenly find out you were wrong.
Mike, the link's not working on this thing. No.
Oh my God. And then have people unhappy with that in the process. That would be hell for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think this blind spot fits for you, the high D, being held accountable. Is it?
As a blind spot?
Yeah.
I don't know. If it's a blind spot, how would I know?
That's true.
I don't know.
Well, I understand both of my blind spots. Do you have trouble being held accountable?
I actually usually like it, like with the trainer, because then I know it's going to work, right? It's going to work. But there's a rebellious side of me that's like, I don't care if anybody, needs to, be right about this or that, or, when it comes to me, I'm like, I'm just going to do it. That's the other thing, is I hold myself accountable.
Right.
Like I've always been highly motivated.
Well, this
Right.
is the self-focused and unrestricted and divergent competitive person.
What fun, right? Wow, she sounds like a great time.
All right. So let's see. Blind spot. This is absolutely the high eyes. I know. Follow through on commitments. They don't
Right.
show up on time. I don't think this is you. You're not this person. And this is where I think you're just not the same level of high eye that shows up.
I don't
on the
know. I
test.
feel like I can say yes to too many things. And I think that's part of it, that
That's a high
overcommitment.
D issue. Because the DI, that's a mix, because you're optimistic and you want to do everything.
Mhm.
And so you can commit to
I'm
too
like,
many
yes,
things.
yes. And then I've had to learn to say no. That's hard for me.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Cause I'm like, oh yeah, I can do it. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Superman is the kind of the avatar for the D. They can do anything. They're going to jump over tall buildings, on all this stuff. They can do it. They can do it.
Right.
And if it doesn't happen, they'll still figure out a way to make it do it. Or on the negative side, they will lie, cheat to make it happen. This is where the
Right.
bad side of the D, those people who take advantage of people and they get too far down with a lie of trying to look a certain way.
Right. Ouch.
And I know my blind spot, high C, struggle to make decisions without over analyzing.
It's okay, Mike. It's okay. You're going to make the right decision. I believe in you.
All right. I think I'll finish out with this one. Under stress may become the high D dictatorial, a dictator, critical.
What?
Do you ever see that?
I didn't really see that much, actually.
I didn't either.
Really didn't.
I had plenty of opportunities. If you're going to get there, I would have seen that. I is sarcastic and superficial. I know a bunch of high eyes like that, and those are the ones I don't like. I don't see you that way either.
I can be pretty sarcastic. Maybe I was just, my D was so high. I was always wanting to make sure that the ball was rolling smoothly and the machine kept going. So I didn't get too snarky.
Well, yeah. And there's also, what you see on a team and what you see with a friend where, whatever, and you're trying to, the team was a priority. You got to make sure this is going right. So if it was there, it wasn't going to come out on me necessarily. Now with me, it's indecisive. And my high C is withdrawn and headstrong. I am stubborn. That was one of the things on here is, nope, can't make me move if I don't want to move. And this is where I can look like a D, is you can't,
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Like peeling you off of the wall at an event. Oh my gosh. But sometimes I'm like, I'm going to get him to talk to people. It's going to happen.
And you knew to appeal to my high S to take care of other people at times too.
Get it done. I know how to put Mike to work in a way that's going to make Mike feel fantastic. Right? Fantastic. That's the goal.
Okay, I'll leave it. I didn't do this one. Last one. All right. Last one. Personal wants. Control and variety. That's the high D. I think that nails you completely.
Yes, 1000% yes.
High I wants approval and less structure. I know for Jamie, less structure is absolutely him all day long.
Which, okay, this is a little bit funny though, too, because he's the one that absolutely has to have an office to go to, which feels quite structured in my world. I'm like, I don't need an office. I'm always working, where he loves to go and physically have the space.
I think that he's probably going to be pretty high on regulatory or traditional.
Yes.
And so there's a certain place, and he had someone early in his career says, this is where you have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And his rebellious streak helps him know that a lot of people don't do it. So I don't know. The motivators play. And then for me, the high S is the routine and the harmony. Love it. Love harmony. I want everyone to be happy. Everything good. And then the last one is standards and logic for high C. Because I'm precise and I want systems. I want things done really, really well. This is why it was actually hard for me to go to a team. When I was first thinking about it, what if they don't meet my standards?
Yeah.
What if they don't do things the way I want them to do? What if I have to be in the situation? So I as a personal reference that got me there. Otherwise, because I talked to 2 other teams on the phone, but I was like, I just, because I'm suspicious. You're
suspicious.
The other
and
thing.
I was such an influence on you that you were able to, just be in awe. You were like, this is the place for me. This is going to be amazing. But what is a little bit fun about this when you think back, it's like, I did have a pretty good idea of what it could look like. I just needed someone who was willing to put it together and to build it with me. And this is why we have an operations manual, which probably makes you super happy, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, a detailed manual of how to run this team. I like having it. Am I going to read it? No, but I know what's in it because, it was my ideas and your implementation. So the structure actually existed after we built it. So that's part of it, is you got to be a part of that, which I think appealed to you because you got to influence it and make sure it was, up to your standard as well.
There you go. One last tip for a high S that Dr. A said is that do not give them too many tasks at once. They get overwhelmed. And I find that I've got roaring agents, I've got coaching, I've got the podcast, I'm doing this Zoom call, I'm doing this, that, and the other things. Every once in a while, I just kind of snap because I'm trying to do too many things at once. The big thing is to give them a few things to work on. So I'm trying to do that. Like, okay, I'm only working on 3 things at once. I know these things are sitting over there, but don't try to go play with them. So for any of you team leaders that are working with your high S admin, quit dumping all the stuff on there just because you can handle 15 things at once. You're in your role for a reason. They're in their role for a reason.
That's great advice. Well said. Brilliant.
Stroke that ego. Well, Sherine, thank you so much for just kind of covering this. I really wanted to have we're on opposite ends of the spectrum, but also because we're high in the external and internal, we're also matched in certain ways. Mm-hmm. So,
well, it's always a pleasure and it's always fun. So thanks for inviting me.
All righty. Until next time.